much as I've been a content creator and I know how much piracy hurts, I'm also a content user, and I don't want to, one, pay ridiculous amounts for my content, like more than I would pay if I lived in the US. Two, I don't want to wait 24 hours for things when we live in an age where spoilers are like released an hour after things have started screening. Like, it's ridiculous. I mean, and then I think that the last thing is that even the business models that we kind of have now seem a little bit old-fashioned. So this subscription business model where, you know, I have to subscribe to Foxtel for X many dollars a month to get a whole lot of content that I don't want, when in fact all I want is one show, is kind of ridiculous. And while I think a lot of people have bought into that at the beginning, I think there's a lot of people out there who are still like, well, I'm not really happy with this business model, because this is not how the new world works. We've uncoupled everything from each other. We don't buy CDs anymore, we buy songs. You know, we don't buy newspapers, we read articles. Like, why does it need to be the same with content? But the problem with piracy is that, so the user wants to pay, but they want to pay in a system that doesn't exist yet. I think the other problem that we don't see though is that when people aren't paying for stuff, and we're seeing ad revenues decline because no one's watching TV, because they're watching catch up, or they're pirating, or they're downloading things off, you know, iTunes or whatever, is that there's no money. There's just no money. And I worked in development for 2.5 years pitching shows, and we were Sydney based, but we were pitching shows to the UK and the US and everywhere. And the problem is, especially in the Australian market, there is no money. You know, like ABC has a certain amount of money that they put forward for new content, but Channel 7 and Channel 9 basically have their own production companies, which are big global production companies that will put money into developing an original format that they can then sell to all of their other territories due to their size. And they can produce pilots, and they can produce things really quickly and easily and cheaply because they're producing things at scale. Right. So any independent production companies or content creators who have ideas for TV shows, you know, there's no place. The barriers to entry are so huge for you to produce a pilot, get a network to trust you to make it, because there's no money. And so I think that's a huge problem, where we're going to end up with this just like television. We'll end up with the big TV shows. We'll still end up with Game of Thrones and everything, but we'll miss out on those hyper-local shows that can be really important until we figure out how to make it easy for people to pay just for what they want. I think if piracy continues, what we're going to end up with is just a more polarised market. We're going to see more Marvels because they can afford piracy, it doesn't hurt them so much. And we're going to see people doing films for like next to no money, because people will always make films even if they have to pay for it out of their own pocket, and everybody pirates it and they don't make any money. You know, like, there will always be those two. But the problem is that there is a real art and a real need for that middle ground. There's a real need for films that are made by first-time film directors that people go and see, and maybe it doesn't make back all of its budget, but maybe it makes back enough to prove that that director has a vision and get them some funding to make their next one. You know, that's what piracy hits, is that middle, unique voices, diverse voices. When we lose those, we lose our understanding of all the issues that those voices can bring to the front. And that's a real shame. There's also, you know, there's a temptation of you know, I know in a lot of times there was, you know, the things of, oh, well, you can use product placement. So, you know, like the Bond film, I believe the last Bond film was the budget was entirely funded by product placement. So whatever they made at the box office was just, you know, jam or whatever they say. But again, like if you were doing a in-depth analysis of the prison system and, you know, how devastating the consequences of being involved in the industrialization of the prison system can be, like, who's going to product placement that? You know? No one. And so, but that's an important story that needs to get out there. And I don't know. I think it's really dangerous.
So what do you think about sort of the ideas that Veredictum are trying to look at, for example, or others that are trying to help solve piracy?
Well, look, I think the smartest thing that you've told me about Veredictum, and I believe this, is that for so many different areas, is if you can take the technology that is being abused and make it work for you, that's smart. Because technology gets created when there's a need for it. So I think the whole torrent style system of being able to grab content efficiently from different, like, that is super smart. The idea of being able to use that for good is genius. I also think the idea of being able to allow content creators to both deter piracy, but also encourage a better way to pay for content, that's really important. Because I think that we've done a lot of, there's been a lot of work on fighting piracy, but without providing people with an alternative that is better. I guess that's where I sort of see myself and my peers, where we're all going, yeah, okay, but it's not like we don't want to pay. Yeah. We just don't want to pay in this ridiculous form that you're making us pay. And we've already learned how to use this system that is, efficient and works well. So for me, Veredictum answers those two problems by going, well, here's a new way to pay that actually suits you. And here's a really efficient system, and we know you've already been kind of using it, but here is a way to do it properly without hurting the content creators. And I think that's genius. I've worked in this industry. I've seen how it's fallen apart, and
how hard it is, how difficult it is, to make any money.
Yeah, but I think the thing is that industry disruption is where we're at the moment, and everyone just needs to get really creative about how we solve it, and we need to keep. Like with the journalism jams, that's where we're at the moment with news. Yeah. It's an industry that is being disrupted, and we're either going to get to the point, well, we kind of are in that point now, where people are not going to newspapers, they're reading news on Facebook, they're believing fake news, they're sharing fake news. We're already in the it's fallen apart, and now someone needs to come up with a business model that works. Yeah, University of Technology Sydney is launching next Tuesday, the 25th, the Centre for Media Transition. And if ever there was a centre that was needed in a university, it's perhaps this one, because the media industry is in such a state of transition. And it's a combination between journalism and law. And to launch it, they're bringing out Jeff Jarvis, who's a American professor who's written a book called What Would Google Do, and I can't remember any of the others off the top of my head, but has spoken a lot about the need for an open web, the fact that we're in a time where trust between readers and journalists and media institutions are perhaps eroding a little bit, and basically how things are in a state of flux. So what we're doing on the 26th is Jeff's going to come and do a bit of a provocation, or act as a provocateur, and then we're going to have an ideas jam. So we're going to look at 6 different topics facing the journalism industry and kind of ideate around how we can solve them, what are some ideas that are coming through. So it's going to be really fun, and then following on from that, starting the 8th of August, we're going to have a series of 6 creative clusters, which are a 2-hour workshop in the evening where we will look at 3 of those topics in more details and build something.